guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock episode 50. I'm Sophie and I'm so glad you're listening. Today I have Miss Susan.
Hello.
She just told me, I said, this is episode 50, and she said that she has been teaching kids for 50 years and just leading, and that goes into what we're going to talk about today.
That's right.
So look at there, numbers aligning. So today we're going to be talking about teaching up the next generation, leading the next generation, especially in the way of the Lord. And just the disclaimer of it, neither one of us are moms. And so obviously I'm pretty sure my opinion probably is that the parents have the most vital role in leading your kids to Jesus. But the importance of having other voices in their life that's going to lead them to the Lord, like Sunday school teachers or regular teachers or coaches or mentors or friends, especially surrounding the church, are going to be really important for your life. So
when we have our baby dedication services, we stand up and we say that we will support the family and support the parents.
Right.
And I think even if you don't have your own children, you can still support our children 100%. And our churches.
Yeah. So I just don't, I know I have a lot more like teenagers listening. If you are not a mom, don't tune out. Don't be like, this doesn't apply to me. Because even your influence in your own youth group on the younger girls in the youth group are going to see how you live, how you guide, and that's going to also encourage them and lead them in their walk with the Lord. So that was my first little thing. Like, I'm not a mom, she's not a mom, but that doesn't mean you can't help raise up the next generation and lead them in that way. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
My first question I ask all my guests is to share their testimony just so the listeners get to know you a little more and understand where you're coming from. So what is your testimony?
Well, my testimony is I grew up in the shadow of a church, my home church. When I played outside in our yard, I could see the church. When I washed dishes at my kitchen sink, I could see the church.
Yeah.
My father wasn't very involved in church when we were very young, but my mother was a very faithful disciple, and she didn't drive, but she found us a ride every Sunday to make sure that we were in church.
Yeah.
We were close enough to maybe walk, but not in your nice Sunday shoes.
Right.
So we were maybe a quarter of a mile or a third of a mile. So, but my mom always made sure that we had a way in that we were involved in church.
Yeah.
And one Sunday morning in the church service, the Holy Spirit spoke to my 9-year-old heart. And I felt that it was good to have those things, to be close to the church, be involved in church, and have a mother that was faithful.
Yeah.
But that was not enough for me to be saved personally.
Yeah.
So I decided that morning that I would trust in Jesus and put my faith in him because I wanted to be a child of his and I wanted to be in heaven when I died.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that I continuously grew and became a stronger Christian every day. But as life goes on, there were times that I'd be very close to the Lord. Then sometimes I would do things my own way. But I'm so grateful that the Lord didn't let me get too far away before he would pull me back. So I was able, but that was basically my testimony, is that I was a 9-year-old child giving my life to the Lord.
That's so cool. So I meant to share this earlier, but Miss Susan was my 3rd through 5th grade Sunday school teacher, so which was not too long ago. And I still remember a lot of things that you told me from that age. But one of them, I remember one Sunday, we had the chairs. It was when our chairs were lined up facing each other. And it was like in the row, and the desk was at the end of the room. And I remember you were teaching that Sunday with Mr. Gary. And when you were sharing about how important it is to lead the church and how we are the church, even as kids, we're still a part of the church. And you were like, I really want you guys to get involved in the church once you guys are able to. Like, once you're old enough to start leading more on your own, I think you should, because you shared how important it was in your life. And I think in that moment, I kind of was like, oh, well, I'm going to be a mom. Like, I took it as like, when I'm a grown-up, I was like, I'm going to be a mom. I don't know if I want to teach my kids Sunday school. I think I want someone else to teach in Sunday school. I mean, I was little. I didn't know what I was talking about, really. But in my head, I was like, yeah, she's probably talking to somebody else. Full circle now, I'm teaching Sunday school with you, and it's been such a sweet blessing of like, back in January, I think I started teaching, and it was just, the Lord put on my heart. Miss Brooklyn asked me, who was on the podcast last week, she was like, hey, what do you think about this? And I was like, yeah, sure. She was like, do you want to think about something? I was like, no, I'll do it. And then she was like, you should pray about it. I was like, okay, let me pray about it. And then I prayed about it, and it was just clear.
Well, it was such a blessing to have you come, because I think that the kids, especially the girls, but the boys too, they really look up to teenagers and
Yeah.
they want to, emulate, and they want to
Mhm.
copy a lot of things. And when they have a very strong Christian influence like you are, you're not only a blessing to me, but it's a blessing to
Yeah.
them, and they adore you.
Yeah.
And you've making a big difference. And
It's
I can
been-
tell that they
Yeah.
enjoy having a
Yeah.
younger person.
Well, it's been really sweet. And so it was just so full circle of like, you were the one, my first memory of someone being like, you should lead in a church. You should get involved with your local church. Like, this is important. This is this. And then now I get to teach alongside with you. You were my teacher, and now I teach with you. And
That is cool.
It's been sweet. And
That
then it's
is.
also good to like learn from when I was younger. I probably didn't understand fully what you were doing in it, but then now I get to look back and be like, oh wow, that's so cool.
Well, we try to do everything we do
yeah.
in Sunday school. We want to do it for a purpose, such
Right.
as when we have the kids do prayer requests, we give them a chance to do like a 1-sentence prayer to get them used to, saying the prayer out loud, which is important to pray out loud a lot of times. And then other things like when we ask them what is something about their week that they want to share, they share something if it's a birthday or a skating party or whatever, and that gives them a chance to do kind of speaking in front of a group. So we want to just teach them in little ways to become more and more comfortable in being a leader in their youth group one day and as a teacher.
Right. That has been probably the biggest blessing of teaching Sunday school is just hearing them talk, hearing them pray for each other. And then like, I didn't think that I would actually care about what they were doing that week. I thought it would be like, yeah, good job, cool, like pretend. But like last week, a girl told us that she was having a girls' day on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I woke up and thought, oh, Marley's having her girls' day today.
Yes.
I hope she has such a good day. And then today she got to tell us about her girls' day. And so it's like, I didn't realize I was going to care so much about them. And then they start sharing things and answering questions. And I'm like, it's such a fun age because I'm normally go to a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But it's sweet just to hear them like already be able to talk about God. And today it was definitely much more like intimate.
Yes, it was.
And it was a smaller group, but then they also were opening up more. A girl was sharing about how she shared with a friend at school.
That's exactly right.
And it was really sweet to just like have that like it was almost like more of a conversation than a lesson. And so
I love to see when they grow, and then when they come to the point that they actually accept Jesus on their own and they join the church and are baptized. It's just that it just blesses our hearts and it just makes us feel really, really good. And I tell them all every time that accepting Jesus and being baptized, accepting Jesus mainly, is like the most important decision you will ever make. And so it's good to see them when they do that.
Yeah, and the baptism was a couple weeks ago at our church, and it was like 5 kids from our Sunday school class got baptized, and I was just sitting there just crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And like I was teaching right before they had to go, and they're like, Bible study. They were so excited to like. And
you had a big part of them,
and because they knew I was going to celebrate so big with them, and then they like all had to go up at a certain time to go get ready before, and they're like, goodbye, we'll see you. And I'm like, yay. And then afterwards, all the girls were like running up, like, did you see? I'm like, yes.
I know.
So, it was so sweet.
You were a big part in that.
It's been sweet. Okay, so my first question is for you is, why do you think there's so much importance in raising up the next generation in the way of the Lord?
Well, I feel like it's so important to raise up the next generation because Satan is alive and well in this world, and he is doing everything he can do to take the emotions and the heart and the lives of our children. And if the children are not raised in the way of the Lord, and they're not going to have that sound biblical spiritual foundation in order to make good decisions of what's good and bad. And children are sponges. They will absorb from any environment they're in. So if they're in an environment that celebrates Jesus and talks about Jesus, I think that they absorb that, and that will just give them that sound foundation
for sure.
in their life.
So good, and also knowing that raising them up in the Lord, obviously salvation can happen at any time. The Lord is mighty and able to do all things.
Exactly.
Not saying that he's not, but I think it's really cool to see a kid just their whole life love the Lord. Like your testimony since you were 9 years old. And I think it's probably a little easier to share with a young kid and have them raise up and know the Lord as they grow up than in college or later in life,
Exactly.
it's probably a little harder.
It is.
It's not
Statistics show that it's
impossible,
very
but-
difficult as people
Yeah.
age to have them
Right.
give their life to
Right.
Jesus. It gets more difficult the
Mhm.
older they get.
Yeah.
So children are tender-hearted,
Right.
and it is a good time.
Yeah.
And that way they have Jesus in their life, their
Right.
whole life.
And then as they walk through each season,
Right.
they have that comfort.
Right.
That's so good. Okay, so in your own life, how have you been able to serve the next generation? And then I have a question following that.
Oh,
but ask that
okay.
one first.
All right. Well, I've been able to serve in a lot of different ways. When I was
Yeah.
around 21, 22, I started, like you did, I started helping in a Sunday school class. And then later in my marriage, I've kept the nursery, and I've worked in Mission Friends, and worked in, we used to have Awanas. I did that.
Yeah.
I did children's choir.
Right.
I did sports camp even one year, which was kind of fun. And this coming fall, I'll be working, I don't know if it's about 8 or 10 seasons, winters that I've worked in MC Kids.
Yeah.
I do that on Wednesday nights. And then, of course, you and I have our 3rd through 5th grade Sunday school class on Sunday morning. So I don't think there's too many programs for the children that I haven't worked in some time. And of course, VBS. How can I forget that? Do that every year.
Right.
So almost anything that our church offers for children, I have volunteered in, because to me, it's just where I like to serve.
Right.
I do other things as well with the adult groups, but the children's area is someplace that I've always really just kind of gravitated to.
Right.
I just love to see them grow, and when they get it, and when they see things and they ask questions, it just makes me feel like I've done I'm doing something.
Yes, yeah, that's so good. Okay, so why I asked that question was to show like the years that you've served for a long time, and you can continue to serve, and that you can serve until you're done. But going off of that, how has that impacted your personal walk with Jesus? Because personally, for me, starting in Sunday school, not to be like big-headed, but I was like, I'm serving, I'm helping this is what the Lord needs me to do. And then realizing, wait, he doesn't need me to do anything.
Right.
But he does call us to serve, and it's
Right.
good to serve. And then now I've realized how much they've impacted me, probably more than I'll ever impact them.
I agree.
But my walk with Jesus has been drastically changed to see how these kids are loving the Lord. And so how do you think the ways that you served have impacted your personal walk?
Well, I think that it impacts me because it kind of holds me accountable.
Yeah.
When you're teaching children, it makes me want to study my lessons harder and study the scriptures more, and to pray for them. When they give their prayer request on Sundays, I'll try to remember to pray for that through the week, because it's important to them and it's important to me. So for one thing, it holds me more accountable when you're teaching. Also, they ask good questions. And sometimes I know the answer, and a lot of times I have to say, got to get back to you. I'll have to go look it up, and I never want to give them any answer or anything that's wrong. Right. So it makes me really dig into that and make sure. And teachers really are just the best students. Right. When you're a teacher, you're studying. So and so I just feel like that by teaching them, it just keeps me accountable to do those kinds of things. Yeah. And also it impacts my life because I was impacted as a child. I can name several of my Sunday school teachers that have long now been with the Lord. Mrs. O.W. Garner, Miss Fanny Smith, Miss Lucille Garner, Miss Mahala Smith. These women loved me. Yeah. And they were my teachers, but they loved me. They were interested in me and what I did. And I remember their names. I remember them. And that's been 60-some years ago, 65 years ago or whatever, when I was a small child. And I hope that one day they might think, oh, yeah, that Miss Susan, she said that or whatever. I want to impact their life, that they will remember some things that we talked about, and they can carry that in their lives. That's so good. Yeah,
that's so good. So I wasn't planning on saying this, but the co-teacher for you when I was there was Mr. Gary. He passed away.
He did.
Coming up 4 years, I think.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah. But now being able to hold on to his legacy in that class, like, I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but how you give out the lifesavers every Sunday. He had his pockets full of lifesavers, and every Sunday he would give them and give you a quarter to put in the offering plate. And I'd be like,
he would. He was great with that. Well, I kind of give away the Lifesavers because it's their treat when they wash their hands.
Yes, because
You have to wash your hands when you come in, because even before COVID and all that stuff, we still want you to wash your hands because, you can spread germs.
Right.
So it's their treat. And so I just kept that going because I thought that they enjoyed that and they look forward to that and they count on it.
Yeah.
So
today, me and the little girl were ranking them, the colors of the Lifesaver. She's like, this one's this one, this one's good. I haven't tried this one. I'll do that next week. And I'm like, okay, let me know.
I know it's just a little thing, but it means, but they do look forward to it, and they'll ask you about it if you forget to put them out.
Yes, or the one little guy will doesn't get them for us.
Oh yeah, they'll get them themselves.
But it really is sweet, just to see like how they've impacted my life, how they've impacted your life, but also how you can look back and see on the people who've impacted your life and be like, I want to do that too. And like you're right, I can tell you all of my Sunday school teachers and the different things they did that I liked, the different things that they said, and then now getting to teach with you, it's so sweet. Okay, so last question is, how do you pray for the next generation in your personal life, and why do you think it's so important to be praying for them?
Well, I think it's very important to pray for them. We all need to be prayed for every day because let's face it, life sometimes can get hard and get messy. But I think that to pray for those coming up behind us, I pray for them to love Jesus. I want them to love Jesus, and I want them to really desire to have that personal relationship with him. And I want them to look around their surroundings and their circumstances, and they can see God working. And I just want them to realize that he's there, he's real, and that, he's everywhere. And so they can always have Jesus. And I just pray for that. I want them to know he's real, to feel he's real, to desire him, to love him more. That's the kind of things that I pray for.
That's so good. And just like she said, so in our Sunday school class, when I came in, I noticed that you did that, and I was like, that is so cool. It's like, I have a prayer request. I say, hey, my dog's sick. Immediately we'll ask, okay, who wants to pray for Sophie's sick dog? Someone will raise their hand, and they'll pray immediately for my dog. I hear them praying for my dog. And it's just so sweet. And then to see them praying for each other, and to see some of the little boys praying for each other. Like the girls always were so good at just raising their hands, but to see, especially when their friend gives a prayer request, to see them willing to pray for them, I think that's such a good example, especially as they get older into middle school and high school, where that's going to get awkward and harder. But just to see them already getting used to just, let's pray for each other real fast. And it makes all of them feel heard. And I think because the Lord hears all of our prayers. But sometimes when you ask a big group and then you're like, I got to remember these 5, you might miss one. The Lord still heard it. The Lord's still blessing that. But I think it's good for especially that age for the kids to hear. So just encouragement, like pray with the kids. I think like whatever way you're serving, whatever way you're leading, pray with the kids. Whether you're a babysitter and you pray, like I pray deeply over the kids as I'm putting them to sleep. Even if it's a baby, like I'll rock the baby and be praying over the baby. And I don't always know if the family's religious. Most of them are, you can tell, but some of them aren't. And I still get to have the honor to rock their baby to bed and pray over this baby. And so it's just sweet. And then like with the kids, I'm like, do you guys want to pray? And as for a while, like this family that I babysat for a lot, the kids wanted. And so I would just pray. And now they all want to. They're like, we want you to pray, and then she's going to pray, and then she's going to pray. And I'm like, okay. And they pray for it. It's just so sweet. I
think at that age, if you get used to speaking out loud or praying out loud, even those one sentence prayers, it just gives them confidence when they go on up to another class and an older class. Just building confidence.
Just talk to the Lord. So that's so good. Well, this was such a good conversation.
It was a very good conversation.
Thank you for coming on.
I really appreciate you asking me. Thank you very much.
Well, I was planning out my next couple of weeks, especially as school gets started. I was like, I wanted to have it a little more planned out. And I was like, I want to ask Miss Susan. And then I was like, what should I talk about? And I immediately knew, because I was like, she was my encouragement. And it is so important to lead the next generation, even if you're not a mom. And it can look in a lot of different ways. It can be in a church, or it can be out of a church,
in your family or community.
It doesn't matter what it looks like. And so I was just like, I knew. So thank you for saying
Well, thank you very much for asking me.
And thank you guys for listening. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye.